Welcome to the Echoes of History, where we uncover the stories that shaped our nation and explore why they still matter today. I'm your host, Alexandre CONCIO, and in this episode, we'll dive deep into Jose Rizal's Noli Tangere or Touch Me Not, focusing on its unforgettable characters, who they were, what they represented, and how their stories connect to us today, especially in today's generation, while also tackling the what ifs and possibilities of what we can learn and what if they are here in today's time. So lean in, grab your coffee, and let's travel back to the 19th century Philippines and then bring it here in our world now. Now, what would be the central message and theme of Noli Me Tangere, especially as shown through its characters? Mikhael, what are your thoughts on the characters? What do you think they represent?
At its core, Lolimitang Rhea is a mirror of the Philippine society, exposing the pain, the injustice, and the corruption under the Spanish colonial rule and their clerical power. As one article puts it, the novel mostly focuses on discussing the Spanish colonialism as well as the brutal treatment of the native Filipino populace at the hands of the Spanish. This article is from the noipi.com.ph. Rizal uses his characters to show that change begins with awareness. He wants Filipinos to see that their society is sick, that the structures like the church, government, and patriarchy are harming them, and to awaken the desire to reform. Here are some key characters and their roles. 1. Crisostomo Ibarra, Magsalin, or the main protagonist, is educated abroad, idealistic, liberal-minded, and outspoken. A model of the Filipino youth, Rizal hoped for to lead reform. Maria Clara, or the female lead, is portrayed as the ideal Filipino woman of the year, obedient, innocent, but his story reveals how society traps women. Elias is a mysterious pilot figure who believes in a revolution and represents the common Filipino who suffered injustice. Padre Damaso Verdolagas and Padre Salvi symbolize the corrupt and oppressive clerical and colonial power of the Spanish. Sisa and her sons Basilio and Crispin represent the suffering and powerless masses. So the central message here is society must see the wounds of touch me not, recognize them, and then act. In Rizal's time, this was important because open critique of the church or the colonizers was extremely dangerous. No limitang reawakened Filipino consciousness, its abuse, its potential, and of course, its hope.
So many characters, so powerful. Now, Alessandra, let's dig into the lines and scenes that best capture their message.
Yes, now let's start with talking about Ibarra's idealism versus the system. In the article, we saw that Ibarra intends to construct a school in San Diego, but he becomes caught in church issues and is forced to flee the city by the deceitful Father Salvi. Now, that storyline illustrates the conflict between reformist hope and entrenched power. In Maria Clara's case naman, which undermines identity and innocence, the article says Maria Clara is believed to be the daughter of Capitan Tiago, goddaughter of Padre Damaso. But in reality, the priest is her biological father. This revelation is a scene in itself, diba? Showing how religious power twisted societal norms and how women's lives were entwined with those powers. Meanwhile, Caesar's tragedy, the article tells us Caesar is seen wandering the streets, crying out for her sons. Her descent into madness symbolizes the motherland suffering under colonial oppression and losing its children, which symbolizes hope and future generation to injustice. Yung kay Padre Damaso naman, we all know the oppression. Kasi we learned that during high school, no? But from the article, Father Damaso is corrupt, uses his authority to ruin the lives of those who have disrespected him. His confrontation with Ibarra is a key scene. When Ibarra's father is exhumed and Ibarra is publicly insulted, this illustrates how power abuses both memory and person. Now, each of these moments is more than plot. They are symbolical. They help us see the disease in society: ignorance, fear, silence, power misuse, and the treatment that the results suggest: recognition, education, empathy, and action.
Would have thought those scenes would bring so much to today's table. Now, Marion, how do you think the characters of Noli would connect in today's society, especially to the Gen Z life?
Hmm. I think first Ibarra, he represents someone that has a very young reformer mindset. Let's say Ibarra studied abroad, returned with ideals, and tried to build a school. Today, many Gen Z return from global digital exposure like social media, basically the whole internet. And we want to build change in our communities to improve the lives of our fellow Filipinos, whether via digital platforms, speaking up in social media, organizing rallies, for example, the Trillion Peso March, startups, activism, and like Ibarra, we believe in reform. And second, Maria Clara and her struggles for identity and expectation. Her story reminds us of Gen Z, of the pressure to conform, especially for us women, to be a good daughter, to be an ideal young woman, to hide truths, to obey, and to be submissive. Many young women or gender diverse individuals today still deal with very traditional expectations: purity, obedience, and tradition. And her invincibility of her Maria Clara's invincibility of her own power echoes many modern experiences of women. And third is Elias. He represents the voice of the oppressed. Elias represents the common Filipino, the masses, tired of injustice, ready for revolt. And today that's echoing in Gen Z activism: climate justice, the racial justice, mental health advocacy, like I mentioned earlier, that organized Trillion Peso March. The younger generation is saying, we've seen the system fail again and again and again. We are tired. It's time for a change. Sisa, Basilio, Crispin, they represent the side of Gen Z's mental health, poverty, and neglect. Sisa's suffering, her children's plight, this connects to the mental health crisis. Invincibility of working class struggles, youth who feel unheard or lost. Gen Z sees that overlooking these voices is harmful, and it's very important to give light to these issues. And Padre Damaso and his systematic abuse of power. The corrupt priests are like the institutions today that wield unchecked power, whether government, corporations, politics, social media algorithms, institutions, and silence dissent. Gen Z is increasingly aware of this imbalance and continue to speak up against this. So Noli still speaks. It tells us the fight isn't just history, it's present. The structures may change, but the issues remain, like identity, power, justice, and voice. And we must not let history repeat itself again.
Very strong words and representations. But, Sandra, what are the misconceptions of the characters in Noli Me Tangere?
Now we know there's a big common misconception that we know of in Noli Me Tangere. And many people think it's just a romance novel, Ibarra and Maria Clara's love story. But that's only surface level. In truth, the romance is a vehicle for the deeper message. The novel is fundamentally a social critique. The characters and the romantic arcs reveal the larger issues: colonialism, clerical abuse, societal silence, and identity. The article highlights this by showing how Maria Clara's obedience is a product of a society that expects nothing less. For example, the fact that Maria Clara's father is Padre Damaso isn't just shocking plot. It signals the hypocrisy of religious authority. And the story of Crispin, falsely accused of theft, isn't just tragedy, it demonstrates systemic injustice. So, to correct the misconception, yes, there is a love story, but don't stop there, diba? Look at why it fails. Look at the power dynamics behind the characters. That's the heart of Nolly.
Who knew the romance novel had so much deeper meaning? But considering Noli Me Tangere and today's society, how do you think Jose Rizal would use social media to communicate the message of Noli Me Tangere to the younger people?
Hmm. I'd like to think he'd be a very charismatic influencer today, just like the influencers we see on social media. Let's say, I think he'd post a TikTok series. Excuse me. Like, he would reintroduce his characters in Noli, like Ibarra, Maria Clara, alias Sisa. Each character or episode would last 60 seconds, of course. And an example of that would show Ibarra returns from studying abroad and what would you build for your country today? He'd ask that, I guess. And second, of course, he'd use Instagram and he'd post stories like quotes from his characters and modern reflections. Like Caesar's cry becomes mental health matters and everyday people listen. He'd post things like that. And third is he'd use Twitter or now X. He'd tweet about Padre Damaso. Like when Padre Damaso insults Ibarra's father, see how memory, power, and religion collide, and he'd use the hashtag Noli now, and he'd probably host live sessions in TikTok. Excuse me, TikTok or Twitch, YouTube. Mm, He'd ask people, young people, questions about this novel or about identity, colonial mentality. And lastly, he would take advantage storytelling in his own disposal. Like if Seesaw walked our city today, would you help her walk past? He'd ask his audience na, ano yung reaction nyo? Share this video to post to spread awareness on his message. Kasi yung story niya sa Nolly is constant. It's still relevant up to this day. And that's how I think kung paano niya gagamitin yung social media.
That's nice to hear, considering that Noli can be put into the society, especially if Rizal was a influencer this time. But considering us, we're just still students. But how can we apply what we learned from Noli and its characters in our lives?
Here are 5 concrete actions students can take. First and foremost, the best method with the most benefit is educating yourself and others. Like for example, read Noli Me Tangere. When you meet characters like Ibarra or Sisa, ask, what do they represent? Use resources like the article we cited on characters and their traits, like Ibarra's idealism, Maria Clara's obedience, and Cisa's suffering. Start a study group or discussion forum in your school. Talk about who you see in the characters today. Another is speak up against injustice. When you witness unfairness, like bullying, discrimination, and misuse of power, like how Crispin was falsely accused, do not stay silent. I understand that the bystander effect is difficult to overcome because we all fear for ourselves. But the moment someone takes the first step to help everyone, everyone else will follow suit and the fear will go away. So we must always take the first step. Use your social media voice. Share posts, write threads, create videos about stories you see around you that mirror Noli ni Tangere. Third is practice empathy and compassion. Think of Sisa's story. A mother abandoned. Sorry. Mother abandoned. Losing her children. How would we treat someone in such a situation now? Volunteer in your community. Listen to voices often ignored. Uplift people who feel powerless. Last but not the least, be aware of your identity and heritage. Maria Clara and Doña Victorina's character show issues of identity and colonial mentality. We are Filipinos. Let us celebrate Filipino culture, language, and history. Challenge voices that say Western is better. Question values that suppress local identity. And lastly, we live with purpose and constructive action. Ibarra aimed to build a school. You might not be able to build a school. In fact, you don't need to build a school. You can start a community, a club, an online tutorial, a campaign for literacy, mental health, or environment. And finally, set a personal goal. I will contribute to at least one social cause this semester. Tie to your values after studying No Limitang.
So many things we discussed, so many things we learned from the characters itself, what they represent, how they progress, how does it connect, and now what we can do together as a student in this community and as an individual in this country. Now, we all know No Limitang Ere isn't just a book, a romance novel, but unlike its characters, Ibarra, Maria Clara, Elias, Sisa, Rizal holds up a mirror to society. He literally said to us, we must see the wounds, diagnose the disease of injustice, and then act because it's the problem internally that we have here. In the results time, this message was radical, discussing friars, exposing clerical abuse, awakening national consciousness. And he suffered for it, and now he literally is showing us right now, yet we are still blind. Today, as Gen Z, we're the new reformers. We're connected, informed, empowered, but also challenged by new forms of injustice. The story of Noli lives in our lives, in fight of awareness, in search for identity, in the urge to speak the truth. We know how to fight, but we also are scared of its consequences. But once we take the first step, everything will fall into place. But the question still lies, if Rizal is still watching us, would he see us learning from Noli? Or would he see us continuing the story he began? Or would we just turn a blind eye to what he started? He literally shown us everything that we needed to know before and up to now. Our problems in our country still remain and some have changed. But for now, we must end the discussion here. Considering everything here is just a question waiting to be answered. So, as behalf of everyone here, thank you for listening the Echoes of History. If you enjoyed this discussion, share it with your classmates, friends, or anyone who might see themselves in these characters. Because Each and everyone, especially Sisa. In today's society, we have so many mental problems. And especially to the women, Maria Clara is out there for you. You know that the mirror is out there, reflecting it even before. But I'm your host signing off, Alexandre Concho. And remember, knowing your history isn't just about the past. It's about understanding your power in in the present and now changing the future that we have right here. Thank you.